Hi, welcome to my channel. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you how to make some really cute Valentine's decorations. We're going to start with this Valentine's tree with a little red truck at the bottom of it. This picture is absolutely adorable, and then I'm going to show you how to make the love sign. We're going to begin by using an 8x10 photo frame, and I purchased this one at Dollar Tree. We're just going to open it up here, take this plastic off and throw it away, and then we're going to open up our picture frame. Good, now what we're going to do is we're just going to turn it over, and we're going to pull back all these little tabs that hold the picture frame together there. And now we're going to take off this cardboard piece and the picture that came in the frame. We're going to set those aside because we're going to use all those in just a few minutes. We're also going to take out this border, and we're also going to keep that, and we'll use that in a few minutes as well. Next, we're going to take this glass out of our frame. And be real careful because this glass can be sharp and you can get cut by it. So just be really careful so you don't break it or cut yourself. And set everything aside, and we'll reassemble it as soon as we're done. What we're going to do now is I went on the internet and I found a picture that I really liked. And it's this tree with a red truck. And it wasn't the exact size I needed, so I took it over to Adobe Photoshop and I resized it to be able to fit the exact dimensions that I needed for our glass here. And now I'm going to just take and I'm going to get some tape and I'm going to flip it over and just tape the corners of our picture right to our glass. Any picture will work. It doesn't have to be a super sharp picture, as long as it's clear enough that you can see the lines to trace the lines, then it's going to be a picture that you can use and work with. So whatever you choose, that's perfectly fine. And it also does not have to be an 8x10 photo frame. It can be any size photo frame that you want. You can do a smaller one, a 4x6, or even smaller yet. You can do a great big large one. As long as you have a picture that will fit in your frame, that will work just fine. Now let's go ahead and tape our corners down. Good. Now that they're all taped, let's very carefully flip our glass back over again. Alrighty, now what we're going to do is use some of this Tulip Slick paint. Now this is a paint that is actually a fabric paint, but it's going to work great on this glass. And I'm just putting a dab of it here on this paper plate just to make sure that the nozzle on the end of it isn't clogged and is working good. And you could see it was, so now we're ready to begin. All we're going to do is we're going to start outlining our tree. All the part of the trunk of the tree and all the branches, we're just going to take our paint and we're going to start outlining the entire tree. This is such an easy project. You don't have to have super steady hands to do this. You don't have to have any special skills. If you can trace, you can do this project. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I always like projects that are very forgiving and are easy to accomplish and yet look super great. And this definitely falls into that category. Now you can see here, I sped up the video. And you can see by me doing that it's almost like just coloring right on our tree. We're just pressing to apply our paint, but we're also using the end of our nozzle to kind of push that paint around and help us just color everything in. And you can see that the end of our paint nozzle there is a very fine point, and that makes it great for tracing and coloring in those really fine lines. And then when you have the wider parts to do, like the base of our tree, that end of the nozzle is very good at just helping to push the paint around. And if it gets too much paint on the end of it, just go ahead and wipe it off. That's perfectly fine. And then you can just continue. And I've sped the video up just a little bit so that it doesn't take too long for me to get through showing you all the bark part or the branch part of our tree, and we can move right on to doing the hearts. But I wanted you to see how easy it is to go and outline even the most delicate lines here. And if by chance you get a big glob where you don't want it, or you get some that you don't like the way it looks, if it's not surrounded by a lot of other paint that you've already painted on, just take a little Kleenex and just wipe it right off. Now, if it is surrounded by other paint and it's not in a spot that's easy to just wipe without hurting any of the other things that you've already painted, then just go ahead and let it dry, and I'll show you in a minute how easy it is to just remove that part. Like I said, this is a very forgiving project, so if you do anything that you wish you wouldn't have, don't worry, it's all fixable. The only thing you can do that can really mess this project up is if you were to break your glass. Now we're almost done here. We just have a few more branches on this far side to go ahead and paint in. And you can see it's already starting to look really good. This is a great project to do for any season of the year. You can do any type of picture that you can find online, as long as it has good, strong, bold lines that you can trace around, then you can do this project with that picture. And there's so many to choose from out there. Coloring book pictures are a great one to look at. And we are almost done with the tree portion, or at least with the branch portion. I did a beautiful one of these last spring, and it turned out so pretty. And there's different ways that you can do this and use this. You can outline the entire thing with black electrical tape and then put some suction cups on it and put it in your window like a sun catcher. Or you can put it back into its photo frame and use it as a regular picture, as I've done. Now that we're done with all the bark part, we have this red puffy paint. And I got all these paints that I'm using to make this picture. I got all these at Walmart. And this 3D puffy paint is a little bit more difficult to use than what our black paint was, mainly because of the fact that there's a lot of air in the puffy paint. So while you're doing it, if you get air bubbles, just go ahead and use your nozzle and kind of poke them, and you can pop those air bubbles and keep on going. And we're just outlining our whole truck here with this puffy paint. And that's looking good. And now we're just going to write our words at the bottom, and our words say loads of love. And you can see by looking at our words that the paint kind of got blended together. Don't worry about that if that happens. I'm going to show you in a minute here how to get up part of that paint once it dries. And so we'll be able to open those words right back up. Now next, we're going to use this 3D puffy paint, also from Walmart, and it's in the neon pink. It's the exact same type of paint as what our red was, it's just in a smaller bottle. And I'm outlining each one of our hearts and then filling in the center. And again, I've gone ahead and made our video a little bit faster so it won't take too long to watch me filling all these in, and I kind of skip and move the video ahead so you don't have to sit here and watch me do every single one of these hearts here. I did find that switching my technique for painting the hearts on actually helped by putting 2 dots at the top of the heart and then pulling the 2 dots down into a V to make the bottom portion of the heart. And you'll see that here on this next heart. You see dot, and then just using the nozzle to pull those dots down. That way it gets the air out of the paint and it fills it in without continuing to put more and more paint on it. Now, some of the hearts are so tiny that they were just too tiny to be able to make them with the puffy paint. So if they were too small to actually draw out the heart, all I did was put a little dot of the pink paint over the top of those, and then I put a little dot of the red paint on top of the pink paint. And that's how I deal with the really, really tiny hearts. Now, as I'm using the red paint again, for most of the hearts, I'm making another heart right on top of the pink heart, doing the exact same way I did with the pink hearts. I put a dot, I put another dot, and then I pull the 2 dots together down into a V shape to make the heart. That is the best way I found for using the puffy paint and making your heart shape. Now, if you get too much paint on the end of your nozzle, just go ahead and wipe that off and you can continue going. And again, you can just see how we're doing our hearts here with a dot and pulling it right together. And now we almost have all of our hearts done here. And there we have it. And now for our next part, we're going to use this white tulip paint in the slick, which is the exact same type of paint as what our black is. And I got this also from Walmart. And we're going to go ahead and put that white heart right on our truck. And then we're going to outline all the highlighted parts of our truck. We're going to highlight the handle and then the door of the truck. And right up around the fender. And then we're going to do the same with our back fender. Good, and that's looking good. And there we have it. We've got that all done. Now all we have to do is let it dry. So we're going to set that aside and we're going to wait for morning. We're going to give it about a good 10 hours to completely dry. And now here we are, it's morning, everything is all dry, our picture is looking good. It looks nice and embossed as our puffy paint and everything stands out. You can feel it there, how it's all raised. That is looking so pretty. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna first off trim up some of this excess paint that I told you I was gonna show you how we do. How we take that excess paint if you made a mistake off. So we're gonna use our X-Acto knife here. And right here on this branch, right there, that branch I made purposely a little extra wide so I can show you how we can trim that up, make it thinner, and the fact that we got too much paint on there is no problem to take care of that. Now all we're going to do is use our X-Acto knife and cut back the portion of the paint that we don't actually want. And once you make your slice as to what you want up, then just use the tip of your blade and help peel that extra paint right off from your glass there, and it will come off very easily. You just have to make sure that you've cut it all the way through. And you can see it looks like such a small little piece, but it makes a big difference when you take off little pieces here and little pieces there and just clean it up. You can make your lines straighter if you needed really straight lines. This technique helps to make them very straight if that's what you want. And when I do this, I always do very small parts at once. Now, if you did do a larger part on this, and that's perfectly fine to do, if you happen to take out more than what you intended, don't worry about that either. This is very easy to just go ahead and apply more paint and add the part back in that you had taken off if you took off too much. Now for just doing little cleanup jobs like this, I try and just do very tiny bits though, and not a great big portion all at once. That way it just gives me a little bit more control. Now doing all this certainly gave me an appreciation for cake decorators who aren't just tracing this but are actually having to do all this fine detail work like that on cakes. That to me is just amazing. And now we're going to turn it over. And just using our X-Acto knife to get up and under that tape, we're going to pull that tape up. Now we're not using our X-Acto knife to actually cut the tape, but just to simply help us pull it up, because we don't want to leave that tape on there where it will be seen. And now we've almost got this all pulled up here. I use these cutting boards from Dollar Tree all the time. They just work great. It's working great to put our glass on and to be able to turn our glass this way and that way without it getting scratched up. And now this is the back side, and we're flipping it over, and this will be the front side. And you can see how pretty that is. And where our truck looked all red when we had done it before, now that it's not having the paper behind it, you can actually see all we did was the outline of the truck. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to reassemble our picture frame. And our glass is going to go in with the painted side that we did facing down. And now you can see the painted side is facing us. And now we're going to reassemble our picture frame. And we're going to start with just a piece of blank printer paper. We're going to start with just a piece of blank printer paper. And that's not quite as large as what our picture or our photo frame is. So we're going to take this border that came with our picture frame, and we're going to make sure that our picture is nice and straight in there. And then we're going to place this border back in there again. And that white border will take up any extra bits that our regular picture does not, or that our printer paper does not. And now we're just adding back in the little picture that originally came in our picture frame, and then our cardboard backing. And now once you have that all in, just gently fold those tabs right back down again to hold your picture frame and your picture in there nice and secure. And now we can turn it over, and you can see how adorable is that. That was so easy to do, and yet it looks absolutely great. And here it is. We're showing it on one of my shelves. I just have it sitting in a little holder that my husband made me, and we have it sitting next to our love sign. Here I set it out on a table. It just really embodies the whole Valentine's Day spirit. And now I'm going to show you how to make this love sign. First off, you're going to need 4 blocks, and I'm going to show you here the dimensions of the blocks that I use. You can use whatever blocks you want or whatever dimensions you want. Now, what I'm doing is I'm going to give 2 coats to 3 of my largest blocks, and I'm using Master's Touch acrylic paint in the permanent red, and I mix it with water just to make it a little bit thinner because this is very thick paint. And then for our white block, I'm using the Master's Touch acrylic paint in the titanium white. And I'm going to give that block 2 coats as well. Now what I do is I lay one of our blocks down on a piece of printer paper, and I just trace out that block on the printer paper, and then I trace whatever letter I want to use on there. And that just helps me to see what size of a letter I need and if it's going to look good for that block and everything. Now you don't have to freehand it like what I'm doing here. If you want, you can use a stencil, or you can print the letters out and use some copy paper or tracing paper to trace it onto your block. I had just decided I was going to freehand it, and I found a letter or a font that I actually liked, so I just decided to freehand it. And when I freehand it, what I do is I make a little line at the top of my block and at the bottom of my block. So I know that I have an equal distance from the top to the bottom where I'm going to start and end my letter. And I am also kind of eyeballing that for side to side. So I don't have one side of my letter that's super close to the edge of the block and the other side that isn't. You want to try and center your letter on your block. And I've done that with the L, and now here's my E that I just freehanded. And I've already done the V. So next, I'm just going to go ahead and draw the shape of our smallest block, which is our white block, and this block will be our heart. So now that I have it all drawn out, the block, I'm just going to go ahead and freehand a heart in the middle of our block. What this does is help me just come up with a heart that I know is going to fit within the dimensions of our block. Now, it's not a great heart, it's not symmetrical, I realize that, but we're going to make it really nice and we're going to make it symmetrical. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go ahead and cut out that shape of our block. Now that it's almost totally cut out here, we just have this one last side to cut off. Good. Now fold that right in half. That way we'll be able to see if our heart is perfectly even. Now you can see here it's not perfectly even, so we can look at the two sides of our hearts and see which one we actually like better. And I like this one that's a little bit rounded better. So now, starting at the bottom, we can just reshape the bottom of the heart that was really off. We can just reshape it as we're cutting it. And then for the top part, we can follow right along the line that we had traced of our heart, because that we already knew looked good. And now when we open our heart up, you can see that it's nice and even and symmetrical, and it should fit perfectly within our block. We can lay it down there, and it does. So now we can grab our pencil and we just need to trace right around our block. And there we have it. It's all traced out. Now, going back to our red blocks, we're going to start using our white paint once again. And this is our tulip paint that we got from Walmart. And we're going to start outlining our letters that we had traced on or drawn on. And just go ahead and outline all your letters on your red blocks with your white paint. And now it's up to you whether or not you want to leave them in just the outlined version of them, or if you would like to fill them in. I personally decided that I wanted to go ahead and fill them in, so that's what I did. But you can do either way. It's completely up to you. And we almost have our L done here. And that's looking good. Now we're just going to go ahead and fill it in. And again, I am squeezing part of our paint on to fill it in, but I'm also using the tip of our nozzle to move that paint around with to help fill it in. And again, I sped the video up some because I know you're getting the idea here, and you can tell how quickly it goes just filling these in. There's nothing fancy about this part. And now we're making our E. And going right around and tracing what we've drawn on already. And I think it's turning out really well. And now we'll just color that E in. And this is such an easy project, but it really looks great. And one thing I really like about this one is the fact that using this type of paint, it gives it a raised and embossed feel. And so it just really seems something special. I think having that embossed feel to it just takes it to the next level. And there's our E. Now we have our L and our E done. Now we'll just do our V here. It's coming along good. We are almost done with our second project. And now we can fill our V in. And these really just add a little extra touch to your home and to your decorations. And you can see here how I sped the video up just so it doesn't take too long to show you how we did it here. And here's our LVE. And now all we have left to do is finish up our heart. And we're using our red puffy paint, the same paint that we've been using. And we are just doing it right over the top of our traced line. And doesn't that look so cute? Now all we have to do is set it aside and let it dry, and by morning can do anything we'd like with it then. If you like this video, I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and ring the bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Thanks so much for watching.